first, they're all in the know. Pick some winners and then we say, let's go. So come on, it's time to watch the show. We're talking hardball, Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw. We're talking hardball, over under on the hot dogs. Talking hardball, bring your giant bag of peanuts. Talking hardball.
Welcome into the latest edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside Albert Nguyen, also known as Analytics Capper on various social media platforms. We continue the show on the road, for me at least. I'm in Providence, Rhode Island, was in Boston all throughout the week. I'm traveling for reunions, things like that, but I'm dedicated to the craft. You know, I'll tell you, Albert, a lot of my buddies like getting together, guys who don't wager that often every day. They're in other sort of industries and they have children and they're just they like getting some advice on some games. They were enjoying firing on some basketball and baseball last night. Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks since Albert's been on the show in baseball. Last time he had a plus 150 parlay. But you're right, my man. Good work on the association and the W. You are 3-0 in hoops plays this week, and you even have a nice futures pending with the Pacers plus 1.5 games. Of course, they're up 1-0 in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I've been hot so far in the W, 5-2 against the spread throughout the young season, 2-0 in the conference finals on both conferences. And we have another show, Betting Weekly Fast Break. That's top of the next hour, 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, noon Pacific. And we just launched, like this show, Betting Weekly Hardball, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And that's what we are talking baseball over the next 45 minutes. And we have a game just underway at Fenway Park. It was a rain out yesterday. Maybe you guys had the nerfy. Well done, each team with a hit, but no runs, 0-0 as that game shifts to the second inning. The over-under has trickled down to 8 at Bet Rivers, and it's a coin flip outcome, minus 115 each side. So perhaps some Friday afternoon action if you're so inclined. We will continue to monitor that game. Maybe we get involved as well. And we just want to remind you guys, we have the Betting Weekly newsletter. It is awesome. The current one is 32 pages. Soccer previews, tennis brackets and breakdowns, Bet Rivers odds everywhere, links to all the podcasts. You know, Nigel, Jack, and Dan are doing a great job. Betting Weekly EPL. They have predictions for the final match day in the Premier League. They've had some betcasts recently. I know they've given out some nice winners. So plenty to get through. And I want to break down the Dodgers Mets. To me, that's the game of the night series, most high profile series for the weekend. And that's also a house special at Bet Rivers. Today's marquee matchup features the Dodgers and Mets. Head over to the house specials tab to check out the latest selection of boosted bets, including Clayton Kershaw over 4.5 strikes and Shohei Ohtani to record at least one hit, both through the first 5 innings at plus 425. Kershaw and the Dodgers are visiting Griffin Canning and the Mets. Now, obviously, Kershaw was not vintage Kershaw when he got the season underway. An ERA over 11 in his lone outing. That's 5 earned in 4 innings against the Angels. Frankly, Albert, as a Dodgers fan, I'm worried about him here. I like the Mets in this game. All right, so apparently we're having some audio issues right now. According to those in the YouTube chat, we appreciate you guys relaying that. We're going to try to get that figured out. Although, then again, if you can't hear us, then who are we telling that the audio issues will get resolved? But we have some stuff on the screen at least. But all things considered, okay, they can hear us now, so that's great. Great to be connected. And look, that's the beauty of live television, right? Live programming. You work out the kinks on the fly sometimes. So I agree. I'm going to make it an official play for me, Albert. I'm going to go first five, though. I'm going to isolate Kershaw, isolate Canning. Dodgers have had some nice comebacks at the end, and it's a little juicier, but that's because of the advantage. So instead of plus 100 for the game, it's minus 121 for the first five. To me, and the potential of getting a push, I think that's worth it. The extra 21 cents to really isolate Kershaw. I like this Mets lineup. Certainly powerful and potent enough, and I prefer that. So I'm going to go first five. Mets minus 121. You mentioned the Yankees. That's where the Dodgers will be playing next weekend, but they are on the West Coast, so to speak. They got the Rockies, the good old staple of the show, the Colorado Rockies, who continue to lose. Just got swept 4 games by Philly at home. Now they got the Yanks in town. Colorado 8-42 this year. Remarkable 50-game start. 2-17 in their last 19. And of those 17 losses, Albert, 15 of them by at least 2 runs, including yesterday. I got the push on my play of -2, -175. I didn't want to go 2.5. I got a little greedy at the -1.5 price, but I got the push because they won. They, being the Phillies, won 2-0. So now the Yanks are in town. I guess first things first, this Rockies season, very different than maybe the White Sox or Orioles, right? This is an outlier, to say the least. How much has this changed, if at all, how you view some of these run lines when the Rockies just being pitiful in the starting pitching, the relief pitching, and the batting?
Doug, I mean, that's a great question, and you and I have been, friends for a while now, and I don't like to overreact to things like this, but it's hard when we're talking about the Colorado Rockies and how historically bad this team is. If you look at their last 10 games, they did have one win, right, against the Diamondbacks where they somehow dropped 14 runs on them. But outside of that, 0, 5, 4, 3, 0, 0, 3, 1, and 1. So not only is their pitching horrid, which we know, and being in elevation, the total is really high, but their hitting has been awful as well. And if they're not able to manufacture any runs, there's no way they can, compete with the teams of today. We're talking about the Yankees, who are on fire, 13-19. They're just as good as on the road as they are at home. And, they have the hottest hitter in baseball right now going into elevation. It's going to be hard. I think for the foreseeable future, Doug, I would bet and fade against the Rockies run line until they prove me otherwise. And that means they have to win a series, not just one game. They have to win 2 of 3 or maybe tie a series 2 of 4 until I can actually have some faith in them. But right now, it's fade city, baby.
In what format? Because obviously, and I yesterday and at the Bet Rivers app, you can slide. So under all, you can slide your price and your alternate line to anything you want. So that goes for an over under, that goes for a spread. In this case, -2 is -175. That's what I did yesterday for the Phillies game. I think I would go -2. I don't know about 1.5. I think that's just I think the market is caught up to how pitiful this team is. So I don't think there's necessarily value laying 1.5, but I'm okay with the Yanks. And I like the pitching matchup. But frankly, I like Clark Schmidt. Tanner Gordon's not a total gas can, but it's still Colorado, still a pathetic lineup. I would go -2, -175 here.
Yeah, I would be comfortable with -2. A couple of nights ago, I was on the Phillies -1.5. I was worried because the Rockies actually scored 5 runs in that game. I was like, of course, this is the one game they're going to cover the run line, but nope, they still gave up, multiple runs there. I think 9 eventually. So I think you're safe, right? Until they show otherwise. And don't be worried about and don't be scared about making a bet against the Rockies. You might catch a night where they score enough to cover -2 or +2. But over the long term, over this entire season, Doug pointed it out. What was it? 16 of 17 now they've lost by more than
15
2
to
runs.
17, yeah.
Yeah, I think you just ride this train until it stops.
And when they win, you're not laying the 295. Like they're going to win more times. I just don't know how many, but you're eating less juice too. So it's really all about just the games where they lose by one exactly. That's the ones you have to worry about. And with Coors Field, obviously they're pitching. It's just fewer and farther between. And I guess so. Albert, you alluded to it. You said the other day I had -1.5, and the Rockies scored 5 runs. But why aren't you fading them every game? Do you think the market's finally caught up? I think we're there at this point. I think the last handful of days, the market has sort of adjusted to just how bad this team is.
I think the market has caught on, but that doesn't necessarily mean better should stop, right? It doesn't
Right.
mean when you look at the whole grand scheme of things after 162 games and you look at their ATS record, they're not going to be exactly 81 and 81, right? We know that for a fact. They're going to end up being one of the worst ATS records in history of baseball, right? So I think even though the markets has have adjusted, and maybe there's less money now, it's not an auto fade. I still think you continue to do it because every single season there's going to be one or two teams that are 35% ATS, right? And I think, right now it looks like the Rockies will be one of them this year.
They are the single worst team. Even at these prices, they've been the single worst team in the big leagues this year. Now, the Orioles are the second worst and also the second worst run differential. But the Colorado Rockies, if you bet 1 unit on them every day, plus and minus, right? You're down 27 units. It's pretty bad, right?
Horrible.
Pittsburgh, by context, is 12.5. Baltimore 17.5. Still, the Rockies take the cake so far. So I like them -2, -175. But I just feel like the Rockies are something to discuss every day, and we'll see how this game goes. But to your point, unless they win a series and get super hot, like this is it's not a free bingo square because obviously they have to play the games, but there's a lot of edge to be had until this Colorado team can figure stuff out. I've been saying their 8-win number for a long time, and 8 and something every day. 8 and this, 8 and now it's 40, 8 and 42. It's just insane. So we should be able to monetize that. And a good, we are all set with our audio. So good to have everyone locked in. We appreciate you guys joining the conversation, as we like to say. And please, if you got comments about what's going on the show. If you want to talk about a game, you want an opinion on a particular bet, we will answer those questions here on Betting Weekly Hardball. Let's switch to a game that's much more interesting, at least, rather than just the Rockies are bad. It's the Phillies out west against the Athletics. Zach Wheeler on the bump. He's been outstanding. 6 straight impressive starts, giving up 2 or fewer. Last 2 outings didn't give up a single run. And we know that there's offense with this the Oakland lineup or Sacramento, whatever you call them, the A's lineup. But I think we've had a point, just given the Phillies have hot bats as well, that you just have to trust Wheeler. So I would lay the run line first 5. That's how I'm going to play this. How do you see it?
What a scheduling gift for the Phillies, man. They played the Pirates 3 games, the aforementioned Rockies 4 games, and now they get the Athletics 3 games. I mean, this is why they've won 8 in a row, 9 of the last 10. I agree with you. Wheeler's been dealing, and
We might have hit
we've
a
seen
glitch
this.
there. Okay.
Yeah, we've seen this in the past where Wheeler just puts his team on his back. He's a quality pitcher, and I think that Athletics. I had a question for you before we recorded this show. Was do we know now after 50 games what the Sutter home, where the A's play now in Sacramento, what that ballpark is like? We know that there's less fans, right? I think capacity is only like 14,000 people, but the actual field dimensions are comparable to the rest of the league. I just don't know if it's been a hitter's ballpark or a pitcher's ballpark. With that being said, Philly has all the hitters here, advantage Phillies, and then with Wheeler on the bump, he's going to go at least 7 innings tonight. I like it as well. I would probably, I don't usually do this, Doug, but I would probably ladder them from money line to -1, -2, because I think this is going to be a game where Phillies are just rolling right now.
So they're 27, 20, and 4 are the A's to the over. Now I don't have the home away splits, but I know overall they are. So that certainly is indicative. And there was a run at the beginning of the season where I think like the first or 7 of the first 8 or something went over. I like that look. I'd rather just isolate Wheeler. Now you got to pay for it, like I was talking about with Canning against Kershaw, but first 5 on the 3-way run line. So you got to lay a half run, but first 5 -148. I think there's a giant advantage with Wheeler. He's such a big game pitcher.
Mm.
Now I did this earlier in the week and I had Logan Webb and he got lit up. So Again, we don't have tomorrow's newspaper. We wish we had Biff's almanac. We don't, but I like the angle here. I would pay the extra because that athletics lineup has some pop. So it's like, I'd rather just go with Wheeler here, but you got to pay for it. Obviously, the money line is skewed.
And this athletics lineup is underrated. I know a lot of people view Oakland as the team from last season or the previous seasons, but prior to this 9-game losing streak, and yes, they've lost 9 straight games, 2
Wow.
to the Dodgers, 3 to the Giants, 4 to the Angels. They were playing 500 baseball. They were playing really good in an American League West division that was beating up on themselves, right? Everybody's sitting around 500 and the Athletics were right there, but it's tough right now after losing 9 straight to back a team. Obviously, being handicappers, you want to find situational spots to back a team and buy low on a team. This could be a potential spot. It's just Wheeler right now is dealing like we mentioned is it's not the right time. It could be tomorrow though.
Could be, but like you said, the Phillies have won 7 straight. The Angels have won 7 straight. These Athletics have lost 9 straight. So pretty crazy streaks going on. And we had a streak that was snapped yesterday in their last at bat, and we talked about it with Chris Massero on this very show. The Pirates, for 26 straight games, have scored 4 or fewer runs, which tied a modern era record with the 1931 Boston Braves and 69 California Angels. But they put up a 5 spot thanks to 2 in the ninth last night, including with 2 outs. They do get a run home to make it 5 runs scored. So thanks to that ninth inning. Otherwise, it would have been history. Now, the question is obviously, Albert, 26-1 is still a pretty good trend, although it's not a streak. They've gone under 11-2-2 to the under in their last 15 games. And on the pitching side of things, they have Paul Skeens on the bump today. It's a low total though. How would you approach this? Do you go back to the team total route? But it's 3.5. That's the only thing that gives me pause. If it were 4.5, I'd bet it. But the Pirates are minus a quarter, minus 125 at Bet Rivers, over under 7. Really low because of this Pittsburgh's bad offense. How are you anything that kind of piques your interest here?
Not only they break the streak because of 2-run ninth inning, Doug, but it was after a 2.5 hour delay. It was raining in PNC Park all night, so Milwaukee lost their starting pitcher right after a delay, anyway. So, I mean, there were a lot of things that helped that total get to the over. I know personally because I was actually on the under. It was an L for me last night, so that was kind of painful. But to answer your question, Doug, Paul Skeens on the bump today. Bad offense in Pittsburgh. I think you continue to go back on that horse and get on the under. Whether it's team total under or full game under, I'm pretty confident in both. Um, but I would say Pittsburgh's a team that I felt heading into this season, Doug. They had a lot of young talent that I thought would be able to flourish in this, with Paul Skeens leading the way and being the face of the franchise, and these younger hitters kind of making their way into big leagues. But man, what a disappointing season so far for them. And I don't think it's going to be turning around anytime soon. I like the under. Maybe the team total is a little safer just because you're going to be paying a premium with Paul Skeens.
So yeah, that's why it's 7, right? But the team total for Pittsburgh's 3.5. You saw it on the screen a second ago, under minus 125. But the Pirates bats will have to face Freddie Peralta. Are you okay backing an under of 7 with Peralta on the bump? I lean to the under before the over because Skeens feels like he's channeling last year's version of Skeens. He wasn't for like the first month, but 1 earned in each of the last 2 starts. He's got it going, and the Brewers lineup doesn't really scare me either. So I would lean under. That gives you a little sort of wiggle room with the team totals. You can, one team can score 4 for the push, 4-2. I would go under 7 if I were to play this game at all.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Peralta fan, so that is a good point. That's good that you brought that up. I mean, because he doesn't really go deep in games, right? 5.1, 5 and a third is usually where he ends up, 85 to 90 pitches. So I'm not sure about this Milwaukee bullpen, and I don't know if the late finish last night, Doug, has any impact or influence on the bullpen as well, because they didn't finish till basically midnight. I know baseball is not as, physically, it's not as physically hard as the other sports, but I mean,
Right.
getting home and and going to sleep later does make an impact on your team. So I don't know. I think personally I would still lean the team total under for Pittsburgh just because we know their bats are struggling so much. I would isolate that instead of the full game.
In case you're wondering, the first 5 totals 3.5, and guess what? The Brewers team total is 1.5. How
Wow.
about that? 1.5 for a team total for the excuse me, that's in the I misspoke. I lied. I can't lie to my people. Um, Let me call it up. Just I think it's got to be higher. It's got to be 3.5. Yeah, the juice. So I mean, Brewers 3.5 minus 141.
Mm.
It was 1.5, I think, in
You
the
think
first five.
Skeens regained his form is what you're saying?
I think he's back. I think I'm going
Yeah.
to make that a bet. I think Brewers team total under 3.5. Pirates bullpen can hang on here. Maybe Skeens gives up 1, the bullpen gives up 2. We get under 3.5. Another game I'm going to discuss, but let's update the game going on at Fenway Park. Scoreless through another inning. We're top of the third now. Leadoff man is on. Orioles and Red Sox scoreless, and that game is a makeup from yesterday. But Bello is pitching now for the Red Sox, and Lucas Giolito will go in the nightcap for Boston. He was the scheduled starter yesterday, and I talked about it with Macero. I want to talk about it with you. Striking contrast of stats on the home versus road for Giolito. On the road, under 3 ERA, 2.84. At home with Fenway Park, the Green Monster and left, he's relatively new to it, an ERA over 14. Now, it's just a
Mm.
couple starts for both home and road, but he's coming back from injuries, struggled a little bit. But the Baltimore team has been terrible this year. They have the second worst run differential in all of baseball, the second most units lost in all of baseball behind the aforementioned Rockies. Let's start with Giolito. When you see splits like this, but it's only a couple starts each direction, what are you blindly fading, or are you like taking it and considering it, but not really? I mean, how do you process when you see this striking of a contrast in stats?
It's tough, Doug, because Giolito historically has always been a fly ball pitcher. So he's gonna give up 10 to 11 long fly balls every game. And in Boston, that's scary, especially if the wind is blowing out that night. So it makes sense. I mean, the last time he pitched, last week against the Braves in Boston, he gave up, I think, 3 or 4 home runs, right? And that's kind of common for someone that's a fly ball pitcher in that ballpark. So I don't know if I'm gonna back him. We also don't have any. We don't have a scheduled starter yet for Baltimore just because they're playing right now. It's a layoff for me. I don't know if it's an auto fade, Doug, but I don't see any value with any Red Sox side right now until I see more who the starter is for Baltimore.
I would just remind people this week we had similar situations like this, right? I talked about Logan Webb and his splits. He got touched up at home, and usually he's unhittable at home. Yesterday, it wasn't just Giolito scheduled. We had the Cleveland Guardians starter, Bybee, and he threw BBs against Detroit. Tigers didn't score a single run, and his home road splits were almost as bad as Giolito's, but he got it together. So you always got to be careful. Nothing's exactly predictive. It's not guaranteed. You can have sort of a feeling of how it's all going to unfold. But man, it's really tough when you have these stats staring at you. But Albert brings up a good point. Like, is Baltimore even capable of winning? Right? They got game one. How about double headers? Do you let game one outcome impact how you handicap the second game?
Yeah, you took the words straight out of my mouth there because I was going to ask you the same question. I think when doubleheaders first came back after COVID, I was actually a big proponent of sweeps, so mini sweeps. Right? If the team won the first
Right.
game, especially at home, I think historically in that first season, 2020 without fans, uh, it happened a lot where the team won the second game as well. I haven't followed it as closely in the last couple seasons, Doug, to be completely transparent with you. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Right, we're gonna see Boston, Baltimore again tonight. How do you kind of read that heading into the game, knowing what this result is for the first
Out.
game?
Okay. Yeah, sorry, you cut out on my end for a sec. So I would say it's case by case to a certain extent. So if it's a really good team, like if the Rockies are visiting, the Tigers, and the Rockies win game 1, I'm more likely to bet game 2 Tigers. I do think you mentioned sort of the flow of baseball. It's not a sport where, like, the spot is great in terms of effort and energy and, like, a sport that channels hustle and like football, right? You can sort of speak it into existence, if you will, if you're coming off a couple losses and football teams are going to be buttoned up and hit harder. Even basketball, like the Knicks tonight, are expected to have more desperation. I don't know if that translates in baseball. I do think the preparation might be affected. I think a team's if they trying off a bad loss, they might come to the ballpark the next day, be more buttoned up on their focus. But I think streaks are more prevalent here. So
Mhm.
teams that are in a funk and losing, I keep pouring gasoline on the fire. I look to bet against. And if teams are hot, seeing the ball well, there's a good mojo in the locker room. I'm more inclined to bet on them. So that dictates my opinion more so on the doubleheader. It really depends on the situation. So if a bad team ekes out a win, I'm more inclined to bet the good team in the bottom, or sorry, game 2. But it really just depends. So for Orioles and Red Sox, I think they're both kind of, yeah. Obviously, the Orioles have been terrible this year. If Baltimore wins game 1 and beats Bello and stuff, I would be more inclined. Okay, they're now up 2-0.
Yeah,
So they're
2-0.
getting to Bello. Orioles at the top of the third. RBI single by Holiday, ground out, RBI ground out for Rutschman. So Baltimore's on the board, still 2 on and 1 out. So things are good for the Orioles, at least to start. So maybe the Red Sox, you come back with them in game 2, but I'd lay off because of Giolito's splits. I do caution there. So that is a concern of mine, those splits. It doesn't mean I'm going to automatic fade them, but doesn't mean I'm going to the window and betting on Giolito either. How do you ignore the 14 ERA? Okay, so let's swing. I just wanted to say I thought they were adding more runs there at Baltimore at Fenway Park. So a couple other games that I think are interesting. We have the Twins are still red hot, right? They are sizable favorites at home in the range of a buck 80. Royals in town, so it's a big series in the AL Central. Lopez on the bump for Minnesota, Cameron on the bump for the Royals. Any opinion on your end there, Albert?
Yeah, Minnesota is on fire, but they have lost 2 of the last 3. Cleveland, yeah, Guardians played them pretty well. Minnesota won the first one, I think 6-5, and then I think that was a doubleheader. Yeah, they lost the first game 6-5. So that's a good example. That was a split 1-1 there in a doubleheader. Kansas City Royals, I really like this team, to be honest. I
Yeah,
think they're really well coached, or managed, if you will. And I think they have players that try to win every single game. It's pretty rare in a 162 game season where you have a team that's trying to win every game. And I just feel like the Royals care about these regular season games, but so do the Twins. So it's hard to handicap that way. We do know that Kansas City is coming out with Noah Cameron tonight, but I think it's just a starter. Is maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if he's
opener, you mean?
yeah. Is he just an opener? Or is he starting?
On my
I'm
end,
not
so
sure there. Okay, I'm looking at previous. He had 81 pitches his last time out, so maybe he is going to try to go 6, 7 innings tonight against Pablo Lopez, who I think has a lot of talent, but I think he's a great candidate in terms of selling high. He's not, he's one step below the elite tier, in my opinion. And so when he's going on this run, and he's won 3 straight starts, 4 of his last 5, and he's gone, over 6 innings in the last 2 games. I think is a potential spot to kind of fade him. He has an electric fastball, but to me, the Royals and their young hitters, their fastball hitters, anyways. I think there's value on Kansas City tonight. What do you think, Doug?
yeah, Royals are pass. I can't lay a buck 82, but Minnesota's been fantastic this month. Hard to argue with anyone just staying with the hot hand. They were on that long win streak. But for me, it's Royals are pass. This lineup got to me and burned me against Logan Webb and the Giants the
Mm.
other day. So I respect it, but I've looked to bet on them more than I've looked to bet against them this season. But Twins, that's a hefty price at minus 182. I can't lay that. I just can't. And I think it's really hard to lay that kind of lumber unless you're facing the Rockies or something like that.
Just fade the Rockies, right? Blindly look at
Yeah,
the
we're
slate
overthinking
and
all
see
this,
who the
aren't we?
Rockies are playing that night.
So I think the Angels, I don't know if the market's caught up to them. I mentioned their win streak along with Philly. They've won 7 straight. They are at home with Kikuchi on the bump, facing a shaky situation across the board. So the Marlins come to town, Alcantara on the bump, and he has not been anywhere close to the Cy Young version.
No.
He's been just getting touched up in every game. And so when you factor in the Halos are hitting the ball, I like Kikuchi. I don't like this Marlins lineup. Alcantara is not right. He's probably on the trade block if he ever gets it right. But I think the Angels are kind of cheap at 157. I think I would have made that line like a buck 70, buck 75.
I fully agree with you. This is not the Sandy of old. The Angels are
Right.
on fire. They've won, 8 of the last 10, I think 7 in a row now. Um, the interesting about Sandy Alcantara is even though he's getting touched up, Doug, he's still hitting 100 pitches a night. So he's still the
It's
workhorse for this team, even though they're losing. So maybe he is, just auditioning for other teams. With that said, it's a team that not only is Sandy struggling, the offense is struggling. I think the Angels is a good look here, especially at home. And the Angels are one of those teams where historically, we think about the Mike Trout years and even the Otani years. They've always been a disappointment, but this season they've actually been really good. They're playing 500 basketball, and I think they've been, undervalued for a lot of those series. And I like the Angels, but it's tough because this is now a series where they're expected to win, and I don't know
right.
how the Angels are gonna, react to a team where they're supposed to win all 3 games.
See, I'd be more inclined to bet them. I think they're just in a groove. But to your point, expectations do change things. I think it's more pronounced in other sports. I think baseball's baseball. I think it's such an individual sport. And when you're hitting well, I just don't want to get off that train. I would be betting the Halos today. Maybe in like a fun, like multi-leg parlay. Because I don't know if I want to step maybe I might bet it later tonight, seeing how games go earlier, but I want no part of Alcantara and the Marlins. I would need many more, much more juice and payout for me to sniff around with the Marlins. I would need almost 2 to 1. I don't think they're very good at all. And Alcantara, to your point, yeah, he's going deep into games, but he's given up a lot of runs, so he doesn't have. He's like an innings eater at this point, which is sad
Yeah.
because he won the Cy Young not too long ago.
Doug, I
They've
do have a
got,
quick question to
yeah,
pop in.
sure,
So we were talking about double headers and, if the first game influences how you decide the second game. If you're looking at like at the entire slate of baseball games, for example, tonight, let's just say, I don't know, there's like 12 or 14 games. And the first half of the games have, underdogs predominantly winning. Does that influence you on how you're going to bet the second half and vice versa?
no, it doesn't. I think sometimes, like in the March Madness or maybe NBA playoffs, the results from earlier could get a team that might be flat. Their coach could use that and get their attention. But honestly, they all operate in a vacuum. I would not think that that is it does not have an impact on the outcome. What about you?
No, that's the answer I wanted to hear because I 100% believe that each of these games are mutually exclusive. And not only, you mentioned if a big favorite loses, let's say the Cavs lost, it should have woken up the Boston Celtics. Well, we saw it didn't. The Celtics
Right.
still ended up losing those night games, right? So more often than not, like a lot of these betters, I've spoken to them in the last few years, is like, one favorite, one dog. Let's say there's 2 teams on Monday Night Football, right? They're gonna choose one favorite and one dog, or one over and one under. And I always tell them that's just not how I look at it. I view each game mutually exclusive from one another, and I think that's the way you're supposed to look at them.
I would agree with that for sure. Hey, Bello got out of the jam in the top of the third, so it remains 2-0. Bottom third, top of the lineup for the Red Sox. Leadoff guy gets on, second guy gets out, and now Bregman's at the dish with one on, man on first, and one out, bottom third. So now there's 2 outs. So Bregman flies out to center. So it started with a leadoff batter reaching first, and it looks like it could be an uneventful bottom half of the inning for Boston. So the live line is closed right now because the ball's in play or something like that. But typically, we're going to get a line any second. And the Orioles have the 2-0 lead, bottom third, 2 out, and things looking good for Baltimore in game one of that doubleheader. And we have some comments here. Daryl Turner says the Nats are going to win again today. And let's check in on those Washington Nationals. They're hosting the Giants. Mackenzie Gore on the bump for the home team. Close to pick 'em odds, all things considered. I lean Washington. They're better than sort of people would guess, but I can't get behind. I don't want to bet against this Giants team. I think they're pretty good, and Roop's been pretty nasty at times.
I like Washington a lot tonight, actually. Let's make that an official play, Doug. I like
Okay.
Washington on the money line. They've won 5 straight games. They just swept the aforementioned Baltimore Orioles. They took 2 in Atlanta. I think this is another underrated team. We talk about the Angels. This is kind of like the same kind of, same level as how I view them. They've been really bad previously, but they have up and coming players, and they have players that they don't care that this team lost 100 games a year ago, right? And so I like this team. I think there's a lot of value. And on Friday nights, and one of my betting quirks is I really like home underdogs. Doesn't mean I'm going to bet all of them, but I'm definitely going to see if I can find value just because it's Friday night. People are out drinking. There's a lot of energy in the fans or in the stands, giving this team, extra motivation to do well on a Friday night. When it comes to the full series, I'm always gonna, like lay err on the side of the superior team. But when it comes to one night, especially on Friday nights, I look
Okay.
for those valuable underdogs.
Gotta be honest, haven't heard that angle before, but I like it. I'm behind it. So the Nats are at home, but they're not the dog. Minus 120, locking in for Albert. Paul Sambugnaro, good thing that he reminded me. I did a sharp better texted this to me, and it's true. The Angels are coming back from a long road trip with no rest and abide by our community guideline. Sorry, I'm reading the next line. That's amazing. Live television. And I pulled to my Ron Burgundy moment. First game back, mean anything. I thought he was saying like he abides by like a rule of thumb is when the team comes back, because that's the old Malinsky special. The team comes back from a long road trip. You want to fade them in that first home game. And it's a layoff for sure and a good angle to go against the Angels. I just don't think it offsets what the Angels are doing right now.
And also how bad Miami is, right? You also have to take into account the other team. Will they be able to take advantage of this, scheduling or rest advantage that they have in front of them? We don't believe so, right? They have a really bad offense, and Sandy's been terrible all season long. Maybe you get for one night everything clicks, pitching is there, and they're going to manufacture some big runs. But that's just not how we're gonna handicap this particular game. I agree, though. I think 2 weeks ago when I was on this show, we talked about the Diamondbacks Dodgers
Right.
series, right? And the Diamondbacks had all the rest advantage. They won that first game in that series against the Dodgers, right? Even though the Dodgers were like 16-2 or something ridiculous at the
Right.
time. So yeah, you're definitely gonna find those spots. I just don't see it tonight because Miami is just that bad.
All things considered, and the road trip wasn't that bad. It was San Diego, then it was Dodger Stadium for the Freeway Series, and then up to Oakland. So only hopped
Oh,
on a
that's not a
plane
yeah,
once.
that's not a road trip. That's a vacation. San Diego, LA to Sacramento, that's a vacation.
Yeah, California, but only on a plane once, but they did that is the most recent trip. So good stuff. Good pointing it out though. We appreciate your insight always in our comment section. So we appreciate everyone doing that. We mentioned the house special. We also want to talk about prop packs. Tear into the action with Bet Rivers prop packs. Place a same game parlay of at least $10 on any MLB game to receive a prop pack, which can win you boosts and bonus credits. If the target score on your prop pack card hits during the game, you win the prize indicated on the card. Just head to the Bet Rivers app now to tear into the action. And another reminder, the bettingweeklystudios.com. So bettingweeklystudios.com for the newsletter. It is so elaborate, so thorough, 32 pages right now. You got tons of odds, links to the podcast, previews of soccer games and other matches across the globe. So a lot of good content over there. And of course, we're mentioned in it. So you have to go check it out, right? Betting Weekly Studios. All right, my man. I think I don't want to. I hope we didn't jinx it. You've been hot in hoops. Solid show the last time you were here for baseball. Let's keep it up and stay hot through the weekend. And I know you got some travel coming up next week.
I know it's a baseball show, but who do you have tonight? Pacers, Knicks, quickly for the viewers.
Well, we'll break it down. Top of the hour, 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, betting weekly fast break. But for me, it's Nix or pass, just the spot, the zigzag theory, all that. But there's a tax. There's a tax on it, so I'm not ready to lay the number there. But there are some prop angles I certainly like tonight. How about you?
OG had 6 stocks in game 1. Look for him to continue his amazing defensive, energy in the second game as well.
It's going to be crazy to see how this game, who responds better off the crazy ending, and do we see another shootout? We shall see. Albert, thanks so much. Great stuff as always, and you can go check us out again. Betting Weekly Hardball, 2 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and Betting Weekly Fast Break, 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and that's coming up, of course, top of the hour. So for Albert Nguyen and everyone who does such a great job behind the scenes, I'm Doug Kezirian. Have a safe holiday weekend. We will be back here on Monday, and we'll see you then.